Hi friends, Amalia here. Today we're going to assemble my Sweet Christmas Gingerbread Pop-Up Cottage card. Okay, I have Cricut Design Space open, and I'm going to go over here to Canvas, and then click Upload in the bottom of the menu. I'm going to click Upload Image, and then I'm going to drag the SVG file into this dotted line box. We want to use the SVG file whenever possible, and because the Cricut software supports it for all models, go ahead and use the SVG file. This is going to give you the best results. So I'm throwing my SVG file in, and then we're going to click Continue, and then Upload. And then I'm going to minimize the suggested corresponding projects. So now we have our pieces to cut here, and everything comes in as a group. So on the right hand side where our layers are, I'm going to right click and choose Ungroup. If you like hotkeys, you can also press Control-Shift-G. On a Mac, I'm going to guess that's Command-Shift-G. So that's ungrouped all of the pieces, and now we need to make sure that we get all of our score lines attached to the right place. Everything that needs to be attached is grouped together. So if we look through our list here, we can see right here our third item is a group, and if we click the little arrow to twirl that down, that's going to show us, oh, this is actually this brown roof piece that's underneath the two white pieces here, and that has score lines. So with this group selected, we're going to click Attach at the bottom, and that's now attached to the score line for the center of the roof. Next, we're going to scroll down to the bottom, and we have a few additional items that need to be attached. So again, you can tell that these are all groups. They've got little arrows next to them, and we can twirl them down and see what they are. So this next one is the support for our roof, which you'll see when we do the assembly. So that's this piece here. I've put it on brown because I think that might look better. When I did the assembly and laid out all of my pieces, I cut it on white because that fit better. I was cutting on my Silhouette machine. So we're going to click on that group. Again, we're going to make sure that group is selected, everything inside of it is selected, and then we're going to click Attach. And that's going to give us those 4 score lines that we need for that roof support. Underneath that, we have another group. We can twirl that open, and this is the green base for the card. So again, we have this selected. Click Attach. Click on the next group, twirl that open. Now these are all of the brown pieces for the front of the gingerbread house. These do not have to be attached together. You can choose to attach them if you want them to all be cut in the same order. I did a little test. If you don't attach them, you may be able to salvage a little bit more of your leftover brown cardstock based on the way things lay out. So we'll go ahead and not attach that. And then our last group here, we'll twirl that down and we'll see this is actually the white base for the gingerbread house, which is right here. And I'm going to click Control-Z to put that back in its spot. So we need to make sure we get all of our score lines attached to it. So I'm going to again click on the top level for that group, and everything is green underneath, and I'll click Attach. So now we have all of our score lines attached, and we're ready to click Make. Now let's check our mats here. So the white, if you're cutting on 12 by 12, is going to be on 2 mats. If you're using a Cricut Joy or Cricut Joy Extra, or just using regular 8.5 by 11 letter side paper, it's going to push your white onto 3 pieces of paper. But we have our pieces. You can see that we have the score line for the base of the pop-up house there. We've got our pieces for the text and the gingerbread man on the cover. We've got our red pieces, our brown pieces. You can see we've got the score line for our roof down the middle and the 3 score lines for our roof support where they should be. And then our 5th mat is going to be the green card base with the score line down the center. Now you can click continue and follow the instructions on the screen to load your paper and get everything cut. So I have my SVG file open in Silhouette Studio. If you're using the free edition of Silhouette Studio, you're going to need to use the DXF file. However, I highly recommend the upgrade. I believe it's only $15 to get to the next edition that will allow you to use SVG files. The SVG files I find generally are easier to work with and will carry color information if that's the way the designer laid things out. So usually it's a little bit easier to see what's going on when you're working with an SVG file. So the pieces are all kind of laid out where they go during assembly for the most part. I'm going to come over here to my menu on the right hand side. Now, if your menu looks a little bit different, you might be in starter mode and you can toggle that on and off in the upper kind of middle right here. Go ahead and use whichever mode is comfortable. It won't matter for the tools that we need to cut this project. I'm gonna click on layers and we can see what's happening in our layers panel here. So what I like to do is move everything off to the left-hand side and group them by color. And then as I lay things out into my cutting mat and cut them, I'll move them to the right-hand side so I know that I've already cut them. There's a couple pieces we need to watch out for to make sure that our score lines stay together. And you can see in our list of layers here, those things are in sub-layers, and we want to make sure that we keep those things grouped together. So we can go ahead and start moving things over. We've got our gingerbread man pieces. We'll move that red piece over. Scoot that to give a little more room. We've got the white pieces for the snow base, our white piece for the text, and I'm going to Control Z on that and just grab the bottom of the card. We're going to grab our text. This all comes together. It's a compound path. We've got our peppermints. I'll move those white and red pieces over. And the red piece for the border of the little message. Now we've got some pieces that need to stay together. So I'm going to select my roof first. So I'll toggle that view on and off, and you can see the brown piece for the roof has the score line, and we want to make sure that this comes together. Right now it's not together. So we want to make sure that we have both of those things selected, and then we can right click and choose group, or you can use Control G on the keyboard or Command G to group those two items together, and that will make sure that our score lines stay attached. Next, we need to do this for the card base. This is easy to select, so I'll just click and drag to select those. We've got the green card base, and then our score lines down the middle. Again, I'm going to right click and click group and move that off to the side. Next, we have this piece, and we scroll down to the bottom. This is our roof support. So there's the base shape, and then we have 3 sets of score lines. So in the layer panel here, I'm going to make sure I have all those selected. So I'm going to select each one. Top one, hold down shift, click the bottom one. It'll select all 4 items. We can come over to the mat, right click and click group, and then move that support up with our brown items. Lastly, we can move the brown pieces for the front of the card. Now, the interior of the windows, you can choose to group those together and lay them out inside of the window when you cut it, if you choose, because it's going to cut things away. Doesn't really matter if they're grouped together. That's just a matter of preference if you want to save some space when you are cutting things. So the last thing that we have sitting on our mat is the base for the house, and that's the last layer here in our layer window. I'm just gonna drag to select all of those pieces to make sure that we have the base piece and all of the score lines that go along with it. And then I'm gonna right click and click group. Again, that's Control G or Command G, and then we have that piece ready to go. So now we can start laying everything out and working from left to right as we cut things. You'll notice that when I do the assembly, I cut this roof support out of white. It doesn't really matter if you use white or brown, but the base of the roof is brown, so you can cut it with that. It will help you save a little space on the white, but you will need to use 2 pieces of paper if you're using 12 by 12, or 3 pieces of paper if you're using letter-sized paper to cut all of the white. So this support piece, it doesn't really matter. You can cut it on brown, you can cut it on white. It won't be noticeable once the card is open and the house is popped up. The assembly for this card is very similar to my other pop-up cottage cards, so if you've done one of those, you should be able to assemble this pretty easily. There's a lot of pieces here, so we're going to break things down. First, let's talk about the tools that we need. In order to position the pop-up mechanism correctly, we're going to use the square set ruler. So this will give us a 45-degree angle to position the house along the card so that it pops up. If you don't have a square set ruler like this, you can take a piece of paper, just a normal old printer paper, and we're just gonna like cut a corner. Doesn't matter what size. And then we're just gonna take this and fold it in half so that our edges are a little bit straight there, and it's going to give us a center line since the square set ruler has a center line, and we need that center line to line up on the crease of the card. There we have that to help us position things, or a square set ruler. I'm going to set these aside for now. We also need a pencil for marking on the card lightly so that we can position things if you want to do that. I have a bone folder. One of the really important things about making a pop-up card is to make sure that you work your creases really well, both directions, so that the pop-up mechanism is nice and smooth. I also have some angled tweezers here to help with the small bits. This card, I would say, is like intermediate to advanced because there are a lot of small pieces that need to be cut, and you need to know your machine really well and your cut settings in order to get things to cut cleanly. Always recommend using a nice sharp new blade and doing a test cut for the paper that you're going to use. I also have my Barely Art Craft glue to allow me to glue things down and have a little bit of wiggle room when I'm positioning things. It's also helpful to have something maybe with a little bit of weight so you can hold down your pop-up mechanism to let it dry if you want while we assemble the other pieces. We're going to start by assembling the gingerbread cottage first. So I have the white base piece for the cottage, and the key to a really good pop-up is to make sure that we score on our score lines really well in both directions. So I'm going to use the bone folder and crease those flat in both directions. So we have our lines, our score lines for the walls of the cottage, and then we have 3 tabs that we need to crease. Again, make sure that you do this in both directions so that our cottage has a nice smooth pop-up action. All right, now we have everything nice and creased. And we're gonna go ahead and put the fronts of our gingerbread house on. So I have the tabs on the right-hand side, and this left side is gonna be our front door. So I have the piece for the front door, and we're gonna line this up so that the roof lines up and the bottom lines up. And then we've got some little squiggles here for some nice frosting decoration on the end, which also strategically frees up the corners for the house where the score lines are so that it can flatten when we close the card. So I'm going to flip that over and add my glue. Now I'm using the Barely Art Craft glue because it dries nice and clear. You can use whatever glue that you like. This way it's okay if a little bit of glue leaks out. And then again, we're going to line up our bottom so that it's nice and flat, and the angles of our roof. Next, we're going to take one of our side pieces. These are both the same. I'm going to flip that over and add my glue. And then we're going to just add that right there, center it a little bit, again, making sure that those creases are free. Next, we're going to take our back for the house. And then again, we're going to line up on the roof and at the bottom. Now, if you have a little bit of glue leak through, you can use a glue eraser like this. You can find them at craft stores and on Amazon, and that just kind of rubs the glue off so that we don't have any mucky bits. And then we have the last piece for the side here. We'll flip that and add our glue. And then again, just center it on that side. So now we've got some little center pieces for our windows. And these are going to just go inside and give us some little piping around the edges. So just center those in. There we have the sides of our gingerbread house. Next, let's do the roof. So the roof has 3 pieces. You should have 2 white pieces for the frosting decoration and 1 piece that is the base of the roof. So this is cut in the opposite of the house. So instead of having to glue all the tiny little bits on the house, we just reversed it so that it was easier to assemble. So the base of the roof is brown. We have a score line down the middle. Same rules apply. We want to make sure that we fold that in half, get our bone folder, and make sure that we crease this in both directions, again, so that it moves smoothly and lays nice and flat when the card is closed. Now we're just going to glue our pieces onto the rooftop. So you'll note that there's a little bit, one side that starts with a scallop on the end and one side that starts with a divot on the end. We want the edge that starts with the scallop goes down. So we'll take that and add some glue. And then we're gonna flip that over and line up our scallops on the bottom. Again, we want to make sure that this piece isn't covering our score line at all for the center of the roof. That will interfere with the pop-up. And I did leak out quite a bit of glue here, but that will dry clear and then we can use our eraser to pick that up. I'm going to go ahead and rotate this around. Find a clean spot here to flip this over and add my glue. Got a little bit of paper sticking out here. So I'm going to clip that. These are actually cuticle clippers, but they work great for clipping little stray bits of paper. And that's just a little bit smushy. Now, if the idea of putting glue on these pieces is really fiddly to you, you could use matte adhesive vinyl or some sticker paper to do the roof bits, and that way you don't have to add glue and it will just be sticky. There we go. I'm going to take my glue eraser and just clean that up a little. Okay. So let's set this aside and let that dry for a minute. And we're going to work on the front of the card. So we have a couple elements for the front of the card. We've got our text that says Sweet Christmas. Make sure you've got the dot for your eye. And then, so we have our red text and then we have the white background. Super easy. We're just gonna add some glue to the back and center this. Again, this is another place where you could choose to use adhesive vinyl so that you can just cut it and peel it off, stick it down, and you don't have to add glue to the back of the text. And we're just gonna center that on there, pat it down, and then we'll do the same for Christmas. And just gently smush that into place.
And then lastly, we have our little dot for the eye. Okay, make sure that I am on the non-textured side. There we go. So we have our text for the front. We also have our nice little gingerbread man. So this is assembled in 3 pieces. Again, cut out so that we don't have to do a lot of little fiddly icing bits. So first we're going to take our white piece and flip that over, and we're going to add glue and stick that down on the red piece that gives us our red hot buttons. Now, we're going to line this up and then give it a good press. I don't know about you, but when Red Hots get soggy from the icing on Christmas cookies, I kind of love it, even though it is like low-key gross. All right, then we're gonna do the same thing with our brown piece. So we're gonna get the smooth side and flip that over. And then make sure we get all nice and lined up. And there we go. Okay, a couple more things that we can go ahead and assemble before we put the little card together. We have our whole peppermint stepping stones for our gingerbread cottage. I'm going to take these pieces of red and make sure I've got the textured side up. There we go. And then we have these little white bits. And we are just going to flip those over and add glue and then center them on our red. Now, this is where a pair of tweezers come in really handy. There we go. We also have this little card, this little insert for the inside of the card so you can write a message on there. Of course, if you need to write a little bit more, you can always scale the box up slightly before you cut it. Now, because I was cutting on textured paper, I cut this part to write the message on textured cardstock. Normally, I would cut something I'm going to write on with smooth. So what I'm going to do, because the back is a little more smooth, is actually glue this on the wrong way down so that I don't have to cut it again. And then we're just going to center that on the red. Okay. Then lastly, we have our card base and some pieces of snow. So I'm going to scooch some of this out of the way a little bit. And we've got a fold line for our card base. And we're just going to fold. You know the drill. We're going to press this nice and smooth. Just flop it the other direction. And then give that a nice score. Okay. So we have the front of our card and then we have the inside of the card. So now we need to add our bits of snow. and you can reverse these, rotate them around. Doesn't really matter which side they go on, but you can see if you push them together, they meet up. So what we want to do is just kind of position them on here, close-ish to the center, but we want to make sure that we're not covering that score line, or else our card's not going to close properly. I'm going to go ahead and flip this over and add some glue. And again, I'm going to position it close to the edge where our score line is, but not directly over the score line. So then we're going to do the same for this side. There we go. Okay. Now we're ready to get everything assembled. Let's start by putting our pop-up house together. So we have our base, we have our roof, and then we have the strut that supports the roof. Now I've cut it out of white. You could also cut this out of the dark brown color so that it maybe matches and is a little more hidden, but it's hidden underneath the roof and inside the house, so nobody's going to see it. You can just cut it wherever it fits best as you cut your paper. So we have 4 tabs on here, 2 on the top and 2 on the side. Again, we're going to fold our tabs both directions. Okay. And then I'm going to take this and just fold it so our tabs are going opposite ways, and just set that down. Now, we need to make our house. So we're going to add glue to this side tab and close it around into the front. So you can just fold this piece over and then fold this side over. Make sure that they meet up and give them a good press. They should line up automatically based on the fold, so let the folding of the card do the work for you. And just let that dry for a second, but you can see we've got the structure of our house, and it folds in both directions so that it will fold flat. Next, we're going to take our roof and we're going to take this one corner on the side and we're going to line it up along the side of our roof. So it's going to go straight down the middle and along the side on the one piece. So we're going to add a little bit of glue here. And then again, we're going to take this and line it right up in the middle along the side. So the top edge has a little crease. And we're going to line this up right on the edge so that our point and where this folds down meet at the top. And if we fold it over, it goes straight down. Now, we'll let that grab for a second. The easy way to glue this now is to bring this piece forward. And then we're just going to add glue here. And open it up. And line up along the side of the edge. Now with this being perfectly flat, that should line up. Again, we're opposite directions in here, and it will go both ways. Okay, now this has had a second to dry, and our mechanism folds nicely both ways. We can glue on our roof. So again, we want to make sure that we have these going opposite directions. And what we're going to do is take our roof and just center it in here. So we're going to add glue to both tabs. And then just center this over and press it down. And then when we open it up, our roof is nice and flat. So we've got, make sure that this is pushed up into our gable. There we go. All right, let's let that dry for a second while we do the front of the card. So we've got our Sweet Christmas text and our gingerbread man. So we can position things how that we want. I've got it positioned this way, but you could also do this if you prefer. I'm going to go ahead and position the text first towards the bottom here. So I'll flip that over and add some glue. And then just center that towards the bottom of the card. And then we'll take our gingerbread man and add our glue. And just center. There we go. Okay, now for the fun part. We're going to position our pop-up cottage so that our front door is this direction. So we gotta line this up about like there and glue our tabs down. So this is where you're gonna use your cut piece of paper or your square set ruler and a pencil. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is measure about 6 centimeters down from the top of the card. I'm just going to give myself a light pencil mark there. And then I'm going to line this up to the center line, or if you're using your piece of paper, this is where you're going to use your crease. And line that up on the crease for the card. And we're going to put our point at that 6 centimeter mark. Line up our score line here, and then just give ourselves a light little pencil mark on both sides. And this is where we're going to glue the edge of our house. So we want to position our house again with the front door this way, and we're going to add glue. And we're going to add glue to our tabs. And then I'm going to turn this so I can see better. We're going to position our house front door out. And we're going to position the crease of our house in line with the crease of the card. And then you can open the roof and reach in and push those tabs down so that they glue. And we're just covered the line. And again, the crease of the corner of the house is in line with the crease of the card. If we very carefully give that a little fold, our roof will tuck in. We can fold that closed and give it a press. Now we need to let this dry for a little bit before we play with it too much. So while we do that, we can glue our little peppermint stepping stones along here. Here we go. And then our card to write our little note. Now, if you like to add some sparkle to your Christmas, some Star Dream white would make really awesome snow for the inside of the card. And then we're just gonna position this right here on the edge. And there we have it. Our gingerbread pop-up card. And here is our final Sweet Christmas gingerbread cottage pop-up. When you open and close the card, the cottage will pop up. When you close the card, you might need to just push on the roof a little bit to tuck it in if it gets snagged. And there we have our Sweet Christmas pop-up card. Thanks for crafting with me today. I'll see you next time.